This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
It is Tuesday, the 16th of April, 2024. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. This is news to 6 a.m. on News Power Digital. Health Minister Terence Diasing is emphasizing with the parents of the 7 babies who died at the neonatal sepsis at the National Neonatal Intensive Care Unit of the Port of Spain General Hospital earlier this month. Following news that the bereaved parents of the babies have decided to sue the state, Diasing said he would have done the same thing. He said the parents deserve their day in court, but revealed that Attorney General Reginald Lamour is also preparing a team to deal with the matters. He said it's their absolute right, because if I was one of those parents, I would engage legal representation. If I were a parent, I would seek redress before the courts. He said he has no problem with that, but representing the state, the Attorney General will be seeking the interest of the state by putting together his team of attorneys. The Police Complaints Authority, PC, has recommended that the Director of Public Prosecutions charge officers for attempted murder and shooting with intent in 2 unrelated incidents, among several disciplinary recommendations. These were 2 of the serious recommendations made to the DPP in the PC's first quarterly report of 2024. 4 recommendations were made to the DPP's office in total. Additionally, the PC advised the Commissioner of Police to consider disciplinary action for 12 matters. Among them, there was a recommendation for an officer who allegedly took absence without leave and was late for duty. The matters referred to the COP for disciplinary measures include 4 for discreditable conduct, 9 for neglect of duty, 2 disobedience, and 1 absence without leave and being late for duty. The matters referred to the DPP for consideration for criminal proceedings include using obscene language, 1, shooting with or wounding with intent, 1 person, 3 for misbehavior in public office, and 1 for attempted murder. On the political front, never take my kindness for weakness. This was the repeated strong warning from Leader of the Opposition, Kamala Prasad-Bissessar, last night as she spoke at the UNC's Monday night report in Moruga. Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar said to the audience, "I serve you with notice. Don't say you weren't ever notified," without calling names of her detractors. The UNC meeting occurred even as the meeting was scheduled to be held last night at San Fernando Yacht Club by dissident MPs Rushton Paré, Rodney Charles, Anita Haynes-Allen, and with some party members. Prasad-Bissessar said the university was open to all people from all walks of life, all faiths, all morals and values must be represented as equally important. She also remembered late MP Morgan Jobe used to tell her, "See not race in every face, see grace, we are all children of God." Prasad-Bissessar said the UNC received 200 nominations for a general election in 2025 for 39 seats. She said it's meant people like the party they want to represent. Meanwhile, while the UNC was having its regular Monday night meeting in Moruga, Tableland, a parallel private meeting of some UNC influencers was held simultaneously at the San Fernando Yacht Club. Among the main speakers at the large gathering of UNC supporters at the Yacht Club were sitting MPs Rushton Paré, Anita Haynes-Allen, and Rodney Charles, now branded as dissidents, and speaking out of the need for change within the party. The private meeting was organized by the UNC San Fernando West constituency group. In news of the region, media reports say a truce has been brokered between Roman Catholic Bishop Clyde Harvey and Father Jared Paul in Grenada. A statement issued recently said one of the 2 mediators, Terence Smith, stated that an agreement had been reached to promote harmony in the Catholic Church in Grenada. It did not indicate whether or not Father Paul's indefinite suspension had now been lifted. The United Reformed Church in Britain issues an apology to the Caribbean and Africa for its role in the transatlantic slave trade. The apology was read by Reverend Tessa Robinson, moderator of the new Reformed Church in the UK, who said the legacy of slavery continues to be blighting on the lives of Black people around the world. And finally, media report says dozens of potential jurors have been excused after saying they cannot be impartial in the hush money trial of former U.S. President Donald Trump. It says the jury selection is expected to continue for at least the rest of the week. Trump is accused of trying to cover up a $130,000 hush money payment to porn star Stormy Daniels ahead of the 2016 elections, which he won. And that is news to 6 a.m. right here on News Power Digital. We'll have major news coming your way at 7 a.m. Good morning.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
Good morning, neighbors. Good morning, neighbors. Good morning, neighbors. Thank you so much for joining us on the Power Breakfast Show on Power 102 Digital. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, on the show this morning, we've got Super Paul. We'll hear from Richard Ragoobarsingh. We got Shane. We got Ruben in the mix. My name is Steve Khan. Of course, let's see who, in fact, let's take a look at what's happening on the highways and the byways before I say hellos to our listeners. Going to Santa Rosa, a bit heavy from Trin City already towards UE and Val, St. El Scuro, and again in the Port of Spain, you got some traffic. Going to Chase Village, you've got some traffic as well. There is an accident at the top of the highway there by Thompson Road. Of course, towards Sugargonas and then Charlieville. Towards the interchange, you've got some traffic as well. 27 degrees at Piarco. It's a warm one already. 26 at Crown Point in Tobago. And let's say good morning going out to Super Paul.
Good morning, Steve. Good morning, everyone. Good Tuesday morning to you all.
Morning, Paul. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Not bad. Not bad. Not bad at all. Let's see who sent us hellos first thing this morning via Facebook and YouTube. First off the gate this morning, we've got John Cato, Oliver Man Warren, DJ Ray out in Tampa, Marcia Rock out in Orlando, Wendy and James, good morning to you. Got Celia from Valencia, Sasha out in London, Boy Badisi, Ray in West Palm Beach, Wayne B in Covington, Georgia. He's in Trin City at the moment. Maria Celia, Nikisha Pierre out in Overcast Brazil Village. Huda Wells, Carol Joseph, Carol Kavara, Josie Richardson, Gloria Gray, Nasser Mohammed out in Rio Claro. Been there once. Yep, only once. That road was horrible getting there. Ewart Rajpal, Rena Boodoo Jennings, Mrs. R is up already. Doreen Pierre, good morning, D. Pierre. Slick Money Grip, DL, Richard Duku, Mo Gaines out in Aruka. Good morning to you as well. Let's see who's on WhatsApp this morning. We've got Danraj, Sankofa, and I don't know what this one is. Okay, so good morning to you. Hope you guys have a great day. Ambrose Blah from New York City, locked in. Good morning to you, Ambrose. Hope all is well. And thank you so much for joining us. Of course, Richard will join us shortly. All right, Super Paul.
Finished?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What happens when
all our listeners?
What happens when the list goes to 2,000 people?
Well, we'll have to read 2,000 names. That's all.
Okay, well, I'll go back to sleep.
No, we can write in 10 seconds.
At that point, I'll go back to sleep.
No, gotta acknowledge our listeners. Took the time out to say hello, so we acknowledge them.
I'm not saying no. I'm just saying when the list goes to 2,000, we'll have to have a different method.
We'll come up with a different method then.
Good morning, everyone. What's happening in the news? I saw that there was a horrible accident yesterday.
There was?
Where a car went into a deep drain.
On a remote road.
And yes, and the mother, well, the driver seemed to be the mother, and two schoolgirls were injured. Of course, they seem to have been injured. Paramedics were on the scene. I don't want to show the video because there are minors involved and in school uniform and in states of distress. So,
yeah, that was
proper.
Car literally ran off the road and went into a ravine.
And ended up upside down in the ravine.
Ended up upside down, yeah.
And the ravine is quite a deep ravine. And The paramedics were tending to one of the girls in particular. One was sitting up, but the other one was lying down. She had some serious cuts on her face, which were bleeding. So the paramedic was trying to stymie the bleeding, and she seemed in deep distress. The mother, or who may have been the driver, I didn't see anyone else that seemed to have been injured, was making a call and was in terrible distress. And let me see if I find the story. It was really quite a disturbing thing to view. You know, in terms of the video, and everything goes to video these days. So
yeah, everything goes viral.
Yeah. You know, yes, the Sangani mother and her two teenage daughters managed to escape major injuries when their car plummeted several feet into a river and landed on its hood. Fortunately, the injuries were not life-threatening. Her name is Denise Woods, and the daughters are Syria Wills and Tay Wills. One is 19 and one is 13. They were taken to hospital, and I think they were discharged. They were students of Bishop Anstey School in Trin City East.
Yeah.
The accident occurred at around 8:55 a.m. when the mother was driving a Nissan Navara along Arima Old Road.
It was a pickup. I didn't even realize.
Yeah, when the car reached the bridge at Lowry Source Road, the van picked up a skid and was lost control, crashed through a barrier and into the river several feet below. Thank God they didn't receive serious injuries.
That was like a 20-foot drop.
They had to use a lot of force to open the doors because the doors became sealed when the car landed on its hood with the occupants inside. All right. Former Arima MP Roger Samuel, you remember him?
Oh yeah.
He was very instrumental in crediting the CPEP crew. A CPEP crew was working nearby and came and rescued the mother and the daughters. They had to actually come together and drag the doors open to get them out of the vehicles. So it is quite, the pickup is totally demolished. I'm happily no one was injured, because if you see the condition of the pickup, you would just wonder how no one escaped serious injury. But I mean, when I saw that video yesterday, I mean, wow.
Yeah.
Right. Khadija Amin went viral yesterday.
Sips coffee. Yeah, she had a rough weekend,
to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
But there were reports that someone whom she was familiar with and her were having a drink at a bar. This is most of the reports. Most of the reports indicate this. And when it was time to leave, apparently some sort of altercation occurred, and she was slammed against the car, cuffed in her stomach, and her head was hit on the car.
Mm-hmm.
And she seemed to have been held against her will. She called someone who called the police. Police pulled up in quick time. Good work, police. And took her to the police. Is it the Tunapuna police station?
Tunapuna police station.
Where she refused to give a statement. No, we're not off the air.
We just sitting in silence. And, and some people, took to a pulpit and had to say various things. And I'm going, I just shook my head. That's all. Just exactly what Paul is doing right now. Yeah, there you go.
I'm going to move on quickly.
Yes.
One of the Express front page articles online the top articles is titled Scandalous Trips. Scandalous Trips. And Rapuch East MP Dr. Rudal Moonilal is slamming Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley's $10 million travel bill with $0.8 million for a Washington visit. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley's 5-day trip to the U.S. to hold meetings with high-level officials from January 28th to February 2024 cost taxpayers $818,262 million and 97 cents. So Dr. Moonilal says he intends to file questions about the PM's trips to ascertain the delegation, what meetings were attended to, who invited them, and the outcomes of the meetings. You know, this is going to open up Pandora's box, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a question posed, and the Office of the Prime Minister responded to a written question filed by Dr. Moonilal and asked how many times the Prime Minister traveled overseas between September 2020, when the PNM was re-elected, I'm presuming, I think that was about the time, and February 29th, 2024. And the cost of each trip, including hotel accommodations, meals, ground transportation for the Prime Minister and his entourage, and other related expenses. The answer was supplied last Friday in the Parliament. The written response revealed that $10.6 million was spent on 19 official trips taken by the Prime Minister in that 40-month period.
Oh, it's 19 trips. Okay.
You know,
Let me pull out my calculator here.
you know that is going to open a Pandora's box.
Mm-hmm.
Because guess what? I am absolutely sure right now somebody going back in the records and tabulating the cost of Mrs. Pasabi's trip between 2010 and 2050. You know, let's go.
Yeah.
I am absolutely sure right now somebody's been assigned that homework. So I'm
It
sure
hasn't started already.
that within the next few days, you will see a complete report appear in the media of the cost of Mrs. Pasabi Sessa and her entourage trips between 2010 and 2015. They will actually go down into how much trips Dr. Moonilal took also, and other ministers at the time. It is so predictable, it's not funny. It is going to happen in the next couple of days. Okay?
And then we'll hear it on the platform.
Platform, you hear it everywhere, right? Oh, let me take a thing.
Sips coffee. So Mrs. Allen, Anita Haynes Allen, and Mr. Parry, Mr. Rambalia, sorry, they had their own separate meeting at the same time last evening.
So the UNC had a meeting, the normal Monday night report meeting.
Yeah.
In Maruga Tableland.
Right.
Of course, most of the UNC frontline attended. While that meeting was happening, there was a parallel meeting of some people described as UNC influencers in the papers held at the San Fernando Yacht Club, which included MPs Rushton Parry, Anita Haynes Allen, and Rodney Charles. The meeting was organized by the UNC's San Fernando West Constituency Group. Chris Hussein, one of the organizers, speaking at the Yacht Club, told Newsday, having witnessed the public calls for restructuring the party and calls for the leader to take her exit, the group is very concerned about the future of the party. Let me tell you something. Nothing sends a message of fracture and internal issues like having two separate meetings with two separate agendas on the same night. And clearly, Anita Haynes is no longer being benign about where she's sitting in this situation.
So is it that they're not having the internal elections coming up in June?
I will not be able to answer that. I'm unable to answer that. Let's ask somebody who's inside the party structure to answer that. I know what has happened with them is that they've received 200 persons have filed papers to contest these 39 seats. They received 200 nominations for general elections, which is supposed to be in 2025, but can be anytime now. Anytime the Prime Minister feels to call it, he can call it. But unlikely to be before next year. Right? And Mrs. Pathabisesa said the fact that there were 200 persons who filed nomination papers and went through the process, which entails, I think, what did we say last week? You have to get 3 testimonials and some number of signatures or something like that. She means people like the party and they want to represent the party, and it's a good sign for the party. But I mean, it is clear now that there is this, the line in the sand has been drawn some weeks now. But when you decide as an MP and part of a collective, a party, that you are going to have a meeting, or you're going to attend a meeting on the same night when everybody should be at the original meeting, then the line is getting deeper. So we see how that evolves. And if the persons, well, Rodney Charles has already indicated he is not seeking re-election for Naparima.
Yeah, he had said that.
There'll be a new person nominated for that when the screening committee, which I understand is supposed to start taking place in May, takes place. We will see if and Rushton Parry filed nomination papers. I don't know. Did we see any indication that Anita Haynes Allen Sile, who's the member of parliament for Tabakit, also filed nomination papers for reconsideration again?
I can't recall.
All right. She didn't say she wasn't going to. You know? So it will be interesting to see if both Rushton Parry and Anita Haynes are chosen by the process when screening begins for 39 seats. And by the information in the newspapers, this is something Wendell always speaks about. The UNC seems to be only contesting 39 seats, which suggests that they're not contesting the Tobago seats.
Tobago.
Which I always wonder why. Is it that they don't think they're going to ever win Tobago? Or is it that they're leaving Tobago to be handled by the Tobago People's Party led by Fali Augustine and hope to come to some sort of accommodation if 1 or 2 of those seats are won by Mr. Augustine, or anybody in Tobago for that matter, any party in Tobago? Is that the strategy? Clearly, if on the newspapers reporting this, 200 nominations received for 39 seats in Trinidad. They didn't speak to any seats in Tobago. And the national election has 41 seats in the case of Trinidad and Tobago. So is it that the UNC doesn't plan to contest Tobago? So, oh yes, you're right. Somebody's going to throw in the helicopter rides also.
I just read that.
And the cost of the helicopter rides and helicopter fuel. People, when the chat done calculating.
Oh, yeah, calculating. Try watching the chat here. Of course, you can send us a message via Facebook and YouTube. Not forgetting WhatsApp.
Wow.
The chat is hot this morning.
Oh, yeah, bitter joke, nah?
Nah.
They talk about trip to India. They talk about trip to Brazil. Talk about trip to New York.
Break down the trip to 1.9 million. Somebody said that. Who did?
Every time you open that door, you know what's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Every time you open the door about trips, you know what's going to happen. It is going to happen.
Yeah. Pandora's box indeed, DL said.
Yeah. Health Minister Terence Diasing is empathizing with the parents of the 7 babies who died of neonatal sepsis at the intensive care unit, the NICU at the Port of Spain General Hospital. He said that he would have also sued. He said he understands that the parents are suing. He said he would have done the same thing, so he can't blame them. And that they have he said the parents deserve their day in court, but that the Attorney General was also getting a team together to defend the interest of the state.
Did the Port of Spain General Hospital, did they send out a release yet, Paul, or no?
They sent out a release.
They did, okay.
When the news, after the news broke, unfortunately, as opposed to doing it as the incident occurred, they had said that they had confirmed that several babies, they didn't specify 7, this was last week, I think, died as a result of neonatal sepsis, and then an investigation had been launched. A full investigation has been launched. Now, if nothing else, to me, screams for an independent investigation is the comments of the Minister of Health here. And once the state is the recipient of a pre-action protocol, yes, the Attorney General has to respond by putting a team together to defend the interests of the state. But when you consider that the Ministry of Health is state, the Attorney General is state, and the parents, individually and collectively, are seeking to their legal interest in a matter related to the deaths of 7 babies, why would I, as a parent, trust a report that is initiated by the Ministry of Health, which is a defendant or is going to be the defendant in this matter? Why? Why wouldn't I, to secure my interest, because the Ministry of Health and the Attorney General's office are both going to defend the interests of the state? Why would I trust a report as impartial and fully containing all the information and not selective information as one of the main sources of evidence in this matter? Why? No, I wouldn't, quite frankly. I would want an independent investigation to ascertain the facts, because it is the duty of the Attorney General to defend the interest of the state. It is supposed to be in a free and impartial manner. Good morning, Ragoobarsingh. When you're talking, you think he's poppy here.
Good morning, guys.
Morning, Rich.
I would like to our listeners and viewers, wherever you are.
I sent you some information in preparation for our interview at 7 o'clock.
Well, I saw, one is a downloadable report that you have to pay for.
Really?
Yeah.
I got it both for free.
No, one just gives you some information, but
I don't need more than the overview.
Yeah, that's what it gives you.
I don't need more than an energy expert. Wait, guys, what's his name? Curtis Wilson? No. I just need the overview.
Okay.
So I don't need the details.
Yeah, I saw the overview.
Okay, all right. It's just the overview I was in it for. All right. Yeah, we were talking about the pre-action protocol sent by the parents of the 7 babies, and Minister of Health Terence Diasing says he empathizes with the parents, but he would have done the same thing and sue the state, basically.
Yeah.
Yes, so I was saying that more than ever now, because of that statement by the Minister of Health, the AG's office is state, the Ministry of Health, who is the defendant in this situation, who is going to be the defendant in this situation, is the state. Why would I trust an investigation initiated by the Ministry of Health? You understand?
Mm-hmm.
No, I would want an independent investigation.
Yeah.
And because the Minister of Health has not put this on the record, I'm sure, because the parents are being represented by Senior Counsel Anna Logan, who is no legal slouch.
Yeah. I mean, from the time if once the Minister of Health has kind of indicated, if in fact he said something like that, I didn't see that, but I'm
In the
taking
papers this morning.
okay that he said that he would have done the same thing. It's almost close to an admission of that, you know, that things
Didn't go right.
didn't go right or things were not as they were supposed to be. Because that's how a lawyer is going to phrase it.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, the easy approach of the state, because I think anybody was listening here, and that was one of your children, you're going to think of legal action. Because it's seven babies that have died. And the idea we're discussing it means is because it's unusual. That's why we're discussing
it. Extremely unusual.
So that if it is that you were one of those parents, you would absolutely be considering legal action. So it's very, very much a very plausible approach by parents in a litigation time where you're going to stand up for your rights and hold state agencies accountable. So in a position like this, this is what always confuses me, Paul. Why would the state, understanding the framework of what has happened, why would the state allow it to get to the court? To me, it's more preferable
to settle
for the state to negotiate a settlement and end it.
And save the legal costs and the drama
and the matter going forward. Yes.
But then when they have to, wouldn't that be an admission of liability? At lump
you can negotiate a settlement without
prejudice. Without
saying, with saying that has not really been determined, etc., etc. But the whole idea of a pre-action protocol letter, why those were mandated by the court in the first place in civil matters, that you have to put a pre-action protocol letter, is to try and settle it before it gets to court.
It's to say, I have intention of filing action.
Yeah.
Let us talk and
basically
to resolve this before I send an actual action letter.
Yeah. So the point at which the state can, but the state generally has a kind of default position, like let us defend it.
Let's defend this.
Yeah. Not all the time, to be fair, not all the time. But because sometimes the state withdraws and doesn't, they acknowledge and say they will settle. So
well, it's a very, very serious matter because this is 7 human beings no longer here and the parents have to do without them. You understand?
I can't imagine
the trauma. And then wondering if things were handled differently, if my child would still be here.
Yeah.
So we spoke to Dr. Fuad Khan yesterday, who said this is a very, very unusual thing, and there's supposed to be protocols, strict protocols adhered to in terms of, because this is a neonatal intensive care, which means that they're preemies, they're premature babies, and in some cases 26 weeks, and they are vulnerable by the very nature of the fact that they're premature. And if the information that is being circulated in the media is that an outside, a child that came from outside, and a neonate that came from outside may have brought the infection and transferred it to, and the others, and through a lack of proper adherence to protocols, then you're starting to see the fundamentals of a negligence case. You understand?
Yeah.
So it's really a sad situation because a lot
of it is, but I suppose the investigation will have to be done, and the state may want to wait on what that investigation says. But I do agree that it should be independent as possible and should optically look as independent as possible.
Yeah. The PCA has put out its Q1 report, Police Complaints Authority, that is, where it's recommended several matters to the Commissioner of Police for disciplinary proceedings. This is going to a dark hole that we've never heard nothing about. And also some matters he sent some matters with recommendations to the DPP, including one for an officer using obscene language, indecent or profane language, one for shooting or wounding with intent, 3 for misbehavior in public office. That can mean a range of things. 1 for attempted murder, and 1 for larceny. So those matters have gone to DPP with recommendations for those types of offenses to be proffered. The ones that went to the Commissioner of Police for disciplinary measures, discreditable conduct 4, neglect of duty 9, disobedience to orders 2, absence without leave or being late for duty 1. So those are matters we'll see or won't see what happens regarding them, because we never really get a report on those things in the medium to long term anyway.
No. Well, that's part of the problem with the PCA, or the challenges that the PCA faces, because once they send it to the DPP, it's out of their hands, and
the Commissioner of Police,
and they've asked for that kind of prosecutorial power via amendment to legislation. It will also involve some level of organizational restructuring, because to have prosecutors, a prosecutorial team, I guess, within the structure of the PCA. But it's something about revamping their powers that they have asked for repeatedly, and they have raised very publicly from time to time. But obviously, the state is lukewarm.
That's being very kind.
At best, about
that's you being very kind.
Yeah, at best about changing it.
They ignoring him for about 10 years now. You know that?
Yeah, it's about that.
They're ignoring David West about 10 years now. Do we want? So actually, it's more than 10 years. It's about 11 years. Or could be 12. So you could talk how much you want. You ain't getting no more powers. You, David, keep talking.
Yeah.
You ain't getting no powers. Okay, we like it. We like it the way it is. Going back to the political front, Mrs. Prasad Bissessa has issued a warning saying, do not take her kindness for weakness. She told the so-called dissidents that at the UNC's Monday night report in Maruga table, and I said, you notice, do not say you were never notified. Right? She said the UNC will continue to be a party of great diversity and tolerance, and that when members began years ago, one couldn't see the mix, but what we see at last night's meeting, she said Dr. Morgan Job used to tell her, see not race in every face, see grace. We are all children of God. And the UNC has received 200 nominations for 39 seats for 2025 general elections. And I was talking to Steve and the audience earlier on about why they don't seem to be contesting Tobago.
Or they
don't think they have a chance in Tobago?
That's a good question.
And Wendell always says that if you're a national party, a general election is a national election which contemplates 41 seats, including the 2 Tobago seats. You understand? So is it that the UNC has resolved themselves to be a Trinidad party and hopes to form an accommodation if another party wins 1 or 2 seats in Tobago? Clearly, that seems to be the direction.
Yeah, it seems so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
I don't think they've ever. You could correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but I don't think they've ever put forward candidates.
No, they have. They have.
Have they?
Yeah, man. I think in the past they have.
I can remember them putting forward, but maybe you're right. Maybe they have.
And since '76, come on.
I know Wendell tends to have a better memory for those things than I guess.
Yeah. But I'm sure they have in the past. Somebody will message me and tell me. It's not been a trend in the last 3 or 4, 2 to 3 elections. You understand?
Mm.
TOP was when when was the TOP was part of the partnership? That's 2010, 2015, right?
Yeah, they were part of the partnership.
So it would have to be before that, because the TOP, but wasn't the TOP part of the accommodation? But it wasn't the UNC. TOP was, so it was part of the amalgamation called the People's Partnership.
Yes.
So it's interesting. It's an interesting discussion that the UNC doesn't seem to be fielding candidates for Tobago. And if, let's say, Fanny Augustine and his team, Tobago People's Party, won 1 or 2 seats in Tobago, the PNM has already stated unequivocally that they're not forming any accommodation with anyone. So that would mean that there would have to be some sort of accommodation formed between whatever party wins in Tobago and the UNC. Not so? But Mrs. Pasabis has said plainly that she is about accommodations. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, the infighting that is playing out very publicly, of course, is not something that the UNC would want at a year probably away, or less than a year away from the election, depending on when Dr. Rowley calls it. But it's part of the democratic process. It's part of the wrangling for power, and you have to be able to deal with it and face it. And if it is that if you have dissatisfied people, and obviously there's a dissatisfied section in the UNC, obviously.
Well, when Rushton Parry, Rodney Charles, Anita Haynes-Allen, who seemed to be a little more moderate before, but when she, according to the newspaper report this morning, she decided not to go to Moruga and go to the San Fernando Yacht Club. You understand? That is a declaration in and of itself. It's one thing to call for internal election. It's another thing to not go to the party's core meeting and go to a meeting that is happening the same night and the same time, and being attended by persons who clearly have made the call like yourself. So, I mean, there's no nebularity there anymore. It is now Rushton Parry, Rodney Charles, Anita Haynes-Allen, and is it Dinesh Rambali who made the weekend statements?
Yeah, it's Dinesh Rambali.
Yeah.
Chaguanas West.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if they are rechosen, except Rodney Charles, of course, to contest their seats as incumbents in 2025. It'll be very interesting to see if their motions or their situations now or their statements have an effect on them being chosen once again to contest those seats. Because most people consider Tabakita a safe seat. You understand? Naparima also considered to be basically a safe seat. Rushton Parry may have a little toss-up, and Chaguanas West may also be considered a safe seat. Not so?
I don't know how safe seat Chaguanas West is. I'm not sure about that.
Which one Jack Warner contested, East or West?
Chaguanas West.
Chaguanas West, and he won as an independent when he stepped down. But it'll be interesting to see what all evolves. Do you have papers of Ragoobarsingh?
No, I don't this morning. Sorry.
All right, but then think of a question while I go through the papers. It is 6:44. Right, let's start with the Daily Express. It is Tuesday, 16th April. Our guest at 7:10, 7:15 thereabout will be Energy and Energy Affairs Minister Stuart Young. So let's start with the Express. Scandalous trips. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley's fired the trip to the U.S. to hold meetings with high-level officials from January 28th to February 2024, cost taxpayers just over $800,000. Dr. Munilad is making a step. It's the front page of the Express, $0.8 million for Washington visit. A picture of a vigil held also for this child. The stepfather of the child, apparently, one of the newspapers reported yesterday evening that he attended court covered in feces and has been sent to the St. Anne's Psychiatric Hospital for evaluation. Ramsaran threatens lawsuit over Forex. That's the group Ramsaran who makes the juices.
Mhm.
They're threatening to take legal action against the state over their ability to source Forex to get the boxes for their juices. Pennywise blocked on skin products dispute. Another mom claims negligence in the ongoing tragic story of those 7 babies who died at the NICU at Port of Spain General. Head of Southern Lawyers fires back at Law Association of TNT head Lynette C. Bransweet, who advocated last week for the Caribbean Court of Justice to be the final appellate court in Trinidad and Tobago. She's saying, the lawyer who fired back, saying it is not, the Privy Council is considered impartial. They're not sure about the CCG, the normal ongoing thing. Let's move to The Guardian. Rambuddy to Kamala, no one is trying to control you. Kamala sends warning, never take my kindness for weakness. Outpouring of support at vigil honoring Amara. Amara's stepfather sent to St. Anne's for evaluation. Minister empathizes with parents. Parents of babies refuse to attend meeting with NWRHA. I'm not surprised if I had to find out in the news that if I'm a parent of one that 6 others died, I'd be very upset too. PCA recommends attempted murder charge for cop, and parents scared after threat of harm to teachers and students at Barrackport East. Apparently, there was some unfortunate warning sent. The front page of The Guardian, Kamala sends warning. All right, and they all sing, what's it? Won't resign over Port of Spain baby deaths. So let's move to the Newsday now for today. Aruka group holds candlelight vigil for Amara. Third mother seeks answers after baby dies of infections. National Nursing Association head of neonatal unit must go on leave. Mother, daughter's Dutch disaster in river crash in Arima. Parry invited to 40 meetings by UNC groups within 6 months. Ex-police officer, COP and DCP should be elected. Freeport family homeless after fire. And apparently they're painting over some of the benches around the Queen's Park Savannah, some of them in red, and there are mixed views on the choice of the colors. They should paint some red, some yellow, and some blue, and some green, and some white, and some black.
Oh God, because is there any color available to us? That's funny.
That's a good one.
Or you go paint benches red leading up to election. You gotta be so careful.
Because
that's not the rest of that one. A constitutional motion to change the color of the flag, yes. Flag should not have red in it. That is showing a bias. Somebody please cut down those yellow pui trees around the savannah. The pui trees are biased.
What trees are do not.
The pui trees are politically biased.
Oh God.
We want more pink and red poetry. That red is only pink. They have some of those scarlet, not so?
Pink and yellow.
Some of those scarlet. We want more scarlet poetries around the savannah, and in the northern range, there are too many yellow poetries in the northern range.
But the northern range is absolutely gorgeous with those poetry.
Oh my God.
I love my country.
But
I love my country. I love it.
But you don't Paul be laughing. But in some countries,
that's caused one death.
They would have dispatched with those trees.
They'll cut them down.
In some countries, they would have
how dare you bloom yellow?
Yeah, exactly. Politics of man is that ridiculous.
Okay, so what's going to be our question this morning?
Well, I have 2 choices actually.
All right.
The 2 choices are: do you think that the first one is, do you think that the division in the UNC is serious enough to cause a change in leadership? That's one. And the second one is, do you think the state should go into settlement talks, or do you think the state should settle with the parents of the 7 children rather than go to court?
Well, the second one's a bit premature because the investigation is not complete. So I would go with the first one.
Okay, well, let's go to the first one.
Yeah, well, let's do that. All right, let me give you the results of our
Thank you,
poll.
Richard.
Do you think that the division in the UNC is serious enough to cause a change in leadership?
Right. Let me give you the results of our poll from yesterday. Yesterday, we asked you, do you think anyone will be held accountable for the deaths of the 7 babies at the Port of Spain General Hospital? All right. Do you think anyone will be held accountable? The results are in for you that voted on our mobile app and our website at power102fm.com. 85%, 85 said no. No one will be held accountable. That
And
is
there is our new poll. Do you think the division in the UNC is serious enough to cause a change in leadership of the party? So that's our poll this morning. So we are now opening it up. So 222 talk 222-8255, North Americans 866-525-1099. That's absolutely toll free. People on the web and the app or streaming, wherever you're streaming us, you can use the messaging platforms there to deal with the poll. And of course, you can also WhatsApp us at 868-318-1021. Before we start counting votes, I just want to say thank you for all of the people.
I was going to ask you, how was the weekend with the play?
Oh my God, the play was fantastic over this weekend. I mean, we were basically sold out. It was very close to being sold out.
Excellent.
On Saturday and Sunday at Queen's Hall. People came out in the hundreds to the play, and they had a fantastic time. As you could see from the comments that are just pouring in onto our social media as we move to Cipriani College this weekend on Saturday and Sunday.
Wonderful.
So our poll this morning, let me say it one more time. Do you think the division in the UNC is serious enough to cause a change in leadership of the party?
Yeah. Give us a call, 222-8255. North Americans, 866-525-1099. If you're at home, you can turn on your television on Flow channel 111. If you're on Digicel, it's channel 20 on Me TV as we stream on television now. So you could pick up your phone and WhatsApp while you watch us on television. All right. Lots of votes coming in already. So let me start off. Anthony Miguel says no. Mrs. R says no. Lester Craigwell says no to the poll. Boy Bedesi, no. Randy Kelly, no. Trini in Boston. Morning, Trini in Boston. No to the poll. Alistair Hart says no. Yvette Scipio, no. Hector, no. John Cato, no. Dan Raj, yes. Of course, WhatsApp at 318-1021. That's 318-1021. Evans David, big no. Michael Robinson out in Yokohama, Japan. Morning, Michael. Says no. Slick Money Grip, yes. All right. Captain Ron, somewhere around the globe, somewhere, says no. Our morning poll once again. Do you think...
Okay.
Go ahead, Richard.
Do you think the division in the UNC is serious enough to cause a change in leadership of the party? That's our poll this morning. What do you think? 222 talk 222-8255. North Americans 866-525-1099. WhatsApp 318-1021. Of course, you could put the code 868 before it. And of course, you can also vote via whether you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can send your vote via the messaging platforms there. If on TV, if you're watching us on TV, you're going to have to WhatsApp us at 868-318-1021.
And that channel is Me TV, Flow channel 111, Digicel channel 20. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen. Sandy Grandy, no.
Thank you, Grandy. Have a good one. Alana Simmons says no via Facebook. YouTube, we've got Wayne Joseph out in Ontario, Canada, saying yes. Julia S. Batiste, morning to you, Julia, says no. All right. Right.
So our poll this morning, repeating it again, do you think the division in the UNC is serious enough to cause a change in leadership of the party? That's our poll this morning. What do you think? So I think another vote just came in there. You what, Raj Paul, who says no. Because you did Julia S. Batiste, I believe.
Yep.
Good morning, Julia. Good morning, Mrs. R. Good morning, Jeremy. Good morning, CJ, who I met with Zena on Sunday night, Sunday evening. It was wonderful meeting you, CJ. And Sir Charles also came along. So we took many pictures backstage. So it was wonderful meeting. It was wonderful seeing Zena at the theater. She used to come very regularly. So I know she doesn't come as often as she used to. But it was good to see
Zena. Zena doesn't come as often as she wants to.
To theater.
Right. Oh, to theater. Okay.
Right. To theater.
Dre's out in Rio Claro.
Glad you qualified.
Says no. So Dre said no. Cynthia says no. I have got morning no to the poll from Roger Seawing. Finbar Collins says yes. Carol Guevara says no. What says you, caller?
Good morning, gentlemen.
Hey, good morning, Zena.
Paul.
I ain't calling Paul. I thought we were going to introduce the Paul later. For CJ to meet him the other night. He didn't show up.
Paul didn't show up.
Paul, did you go?
No.
He said he was going on Sunday.
Anyhow, my answer is yes to that poll.
All right.
Richard, very good play. Very, very good. Well, I don't think I could have any more laugh in me just yet.
All right. Thanks, Zeta.
All right.
Thanks,
Zeta.
Good morning, Shireen Jack. All right. That's any more votes coming in here as we head towards our 7 o'clock major news. Of course, the news coming up in a minute's time. All right. Do you think the division in the UNC is serious enough to cause a change in leadership of the party? Yes or no?
That's our poll this morning.
Our poll will stay up on our website and our mobile app, which you should have by now. We're on any platform you're in, iOS or Android. Just look for Power 102 Digital.
Coming up at 7:15, we have Energy and Energy Affairs Minister Stuart Young to give an overview of what we can expect, particularly in light of this new conflict that's evolving in the Middle East, with Iran firing at Israel and all the potential machinations of those situations.
Right.
Never a dull moment in this world. That's what I will say.
All right. Good morning to Helen Prescott. Okay.
We just have like about a minute again, or less than a minute.
Less than a minute. Cascade St. Anne's says yes. Thank you, Cascade St. Anne's. Sexy San Fernando says no way to the poll. Thank you, Sexy San Fernando. All right. Do you think the division in the UNC is serious enough?
It's serious enough to cause a change in leadership of the party? Yes or no? That's our poll this morning on this Tuesday morning in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah. All right. As Evie settles in for major news. All right, so let's get into our major news right now. Evie Sinhill Bab is in on this, the 16th day of April 2024.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
Health Minister Terence Singh is empathizing with the parents of the 7 babies who died at the Port of Spain General Hospital. The Police Complaints Authority recommends that the DPP charge officers for attempted murder and shooting with intent in unrelated cases. The opposition leader says, "Do not take my kindness for weakness" at a UNC meeting. Meanwhile, a separate meeting is held by dissident MPs. And email threat made to Barrackpore East Secondary School. Details in a moment. This is News 2, 7 o'clock. I'm Avril Sinhill Bab. Good morning. Health Minister Terence Singh is empathizing with the parents of the 7 babies who died at the neonatal sepsis in the neonatal intensive care unit of the Port of Spain General Hospital earlier this month. Following the news that the bereaved parents of the babies have decided to sue the state, Dayal Singh said he would have done the same thing. Dayal Singh said the parents deserve their day in court, but revealed that Attorney General Reginald Amo is also preparing a team to deal with the matters. The Police Complaints Authority has recommended that the Director of Public Prosecutions charge police officers for attempted murder and shooting with intent in 2 unrelated incidents. These were 2 of the most serious recommendations to be made in the DPP or to the DPP in the PCA's first quarterly report of 2024. 4 recommendations were made to the DPP's office in total. Additionally, the PCA advised the Commissioner of Police to consider disciplinary action for 12 matters. Among them was a recommendation for an officer who allegedly took absence without leave or was late for duty. In the attempted murder case, 2 civilians were shot in a car park in July 2013 after a fight broke out following a boat cruise. One of the civilians sustained a gunshot wound to the head. Matters referred to the Commissioner of Police for the consideration of disciplinary proceedings included discreditable conduct, neglect of duty, disobedience to orders, absence without leave or being late for duty, and unlawful or unnecessary exercise of authority. And matters referred to the DPP for consideration of institution of criminal proceedings included using obscene, indecent, or profane language, shooting or wounded with intent, misbehavior in public office, attempted murder, and larceny. Never ever take my kindness for weakness. That was the repeated strong warning from opposition leader Kamala Persad-Bissassa last evening as she spoke of the UNC's Monday report in Moruga. The UNC meeting occurred even as a meeting was also scheduled to be held last night at San Fernando Yacht Club by dissident MPs Rushton Parry, Rodney Charles, and Anita Haynes Allen with party members. She said the UNC had grown tremendously between the time she, the opposition leader, and the UNC deputy leader Rudal Munilal had joined it and now represents every creed, race, and religion, representing TNT's diversity. Persad-Bissassa said the UNC will continue being a party of great diversity and tolerance, and added that when members began years ago, one couldn't see the mix as what was seen at last night's meeting. Persad-Bissassa said that the UNC had received 200 general election nominations for the 39 seats in Trinidad. She said that meant people like the party they want to represent. You are listening to news on Power 102 Digital to 7 o'clock. The Teachers Union is condemning the email threat sent to the Barrackpore East Secondary School. The union calls for a probe to be done into the incident. It also wants those responsible for sending the threat to the school's official email to be brought to justice. In a voice note, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association, Martin Lumpkin, described the development as an act of terrorism.
Tutor takes the opportunity to condemn in the strongest possible terms the action of this individual or individuals and sees this as an act of terrorism and treason. We call on the cyber unit of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, TTPS, to do a full-scale investigation and to bring the perpetrators of this ghastly act to justice.
He said such threats must be treated with the level of urgency it deserves.
Tutor believes in this day and age, any such threats should not be taken lightly, and the Ministry of Education, as well as the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, should take every precaution to preserve the lives of the occupants of the Barrackpore East Secondary School. Tutor shudders to think if this threat was carried out, even one loss of life is one too many lost.
2 secondary school students were injured during an accident which took place on Orima Old Road around 9 a.m. on Monday. A video circulating on social media showed the vehicle in which the students and parents were in capsized in a drain off the roadway. The students were being assisted by a fire officer while several concerned individuals gathered around. Media reports say the students were being transported to their school by a family member when the incident occurred. And finally, here's weather news for the period today till midnight. Trinidad and Tobago, generally sunny and breezy conditions would be interrupted at times by light to moderate showers, mainly during the afternoon. Tonight would be partly cloudy with a few showers. Gusty winds are possible in the vicinity of showers. Additional marine information: all marine interests are being advised to exercise caution as seas may become choppy due to moderate low-level winds. Look out for a forecast maximum temperature today of 33 degrees Celsius at Piarco International Airport and 32 degrees Celsius at Crown Point in Tobago. Currently, it is 27 degrees, or rather 28 degrees Celsius at both localities. Recapping your headlines at 7 o'clock, Health Minister Terence Singh is empathizing with the parents of the 7 babies who died at the Port of Spain General Hospital. The Police Complaints Authority recommends that the DPP charge officers for attempted murder and shooting with intent in unrelated cases. The opposition leader says, "Do not take my kindness for weakness" at a UN meeting. Meanwhile, separate meeting is held by dissident MPs and an email threat is made to Barrackpore East Secondary School. I'm Afril Sintil Bab. That was news to 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. Look out for more news in detail at 12 noon and an update at 8 o'clock this morning. For more details, log on to power102fm.com.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
All right. Thank you, Avril, for our major news. Of course, you could join her again. Come at 8 o'clock for our news brief. All right. Quickly take a look at what's happening on the highways and the byways at this time on this Tuesday, the 16th day of April. Yeah. San Fernando, Golaconda Connector Road. If you're on the Solo exiting onto Naprimimera Road, you've got some traffic heading north on the Solo. Not too bad at this time. We got a little bottleneck coming through by Chase Village, but Charlieville towards the interchange and extension heading to Port of Spain, you've got some traffic. Of course, coming out Piarco towards Uwe, leaving Sugar Guanas towards Ibis Gardens. You've also got traffic. Kelly Village, the back of the airport, but Piarco, you've got some. Eastern Main Road, not too bad. Heavier as you approach QREP and heavier heading through from Uriah Butler towards Mova Junction. Out of Maraval, heavy out of Mocha to Digo, same thing. All right. So let's get the results of our morning poll. Let's see if we have any more votes. We got Adrian Koto saying yes. And yeah, that's only one extra that I have.
Okay,
Right.
well, our poll this morning: do you think the division in the UNC is serious enough to cause a change in leadership of the party? That's our poll this morning. We had 29 people voting in the allotted time, and of the 29 people that voted in the allotted time that we took for votes, 22 of you said no, you do not think it's serious enough to cause a change in leadership. 7 of you said yes, you think it is. for a total of 29 votes. Of course, you can continue to vote on this poll throughout the day and throughout programming, and we'll give you the final results come tomorrow morning, which will be Wednesday and midweek. As we head toward the weekend. So again, I want to say thank you to all of our all of the people who came out to the play at Queen's Hall over the weekend. We had a fantastic time over the weekend. I mean, people came out in droves. I mean, people had to, you couldn't even park in Queen's Hall anymore at a certain point. You had to park on the street because there was just an overflow of people coming into the theater. And I mean, both those audiences had a fantastic time. Oh my goodness. I mean, sometimes the laughter was deafening. I mean, sometimes you're on stage and you have to pause because people are I mean, it is so loud. Even as an actor on stage, in terms of the laughter, you just have to stop and wait and then continue again. But I mean, we had a fantastic time. The audience had a fantastic time. And now, of course, we are finally at Cipriani College this weekend, Saturday at 8:30 and Sunday at 6:30. And tickets are already at all of the outlets. And it's the usual outlets again, basically the same outlets as last week, where you can get tickets for the Cipriani College show, which will be on this weekend. Love is a Walk. So it's on at Cipriani College. I know people have been calling us, when you're coming Cipriani, when you're coming Cipriani. Well, we are here this weekend, finally. So tickets are already on sale. And of course, the box office at Cipriani College will open on Wednesday, which will be tomorrow. It will open from 12 noon to 6 p.m., but all the other outlets have tickets that you would usually get tickets from. You can check RSRR Productions Theater on social media, Facebook and Instagram, for all of the information as to outlets. Where you can get tickets.
Thank you so much, Richie Rich.
What was the poll result? Sorry, I missed it.
29, 27 said no, 22 said no, 7 said yes.
No, I'm undecided for no. I don't think it'll have a major impact on the leadership of the UNC.
Yeah, I concur.
Good morning, Helen Prescott. Yes, Ronald Lee was the first installment in the series called Lessons from Lockup.
Oh, that's what started to come on social media. That's your project, Paul?
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't got a chance to watch it as yet.
It
looked interesting.
I will edit a clip to share with this audience for tomorrow. It's a series that I actually filmed 2.5 years ago. I got access to maximum security prison to interview inmates who were there in for life for murder. And I've always found it an interesting prospect to talk to people who end up in that position and kind of I ask them questions about their childhood, their education, their relationship with their parents, and what led to the decisions that ended them in situations where they ended up charged for murder, and in these cases convicted for life. In some cases convicted, because Ronald Lee, who is the subject of episode 1, was actually convicted and sentenced to death. And then his sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. And he went in there when he's about 20 years old. He's about 53 now.
Wow.
So he spent more time inside prison than outside. And he was so emotional during the course of the interview, crying, and because he was used to collect stuff in the Beetham. He was just on the Beetham. He had for small crimes, very small crimes. And then one day, 2 friends came and told him, we're going to do a job in the West. He was just supposed to be the driver on the lookout, and ended up killing a Chinese proprietor named Clinton Leung. And the rest is history. So our guest is on, which I'm very appreciative of. Good morning, Minister Young.
Good morning. Good morning, gentlemen. Well, yes, Steve, I have to drink my coffee.
Yeah, I know.
I'm
can do a cup of coffee right now.
right there with you.
You see, Richard? Thank you. Morning. How are you all?
Fine, thank you. Appreciate
How are you?
you taking time to be with us this morning.
I am not no energy minister affairs. It is energy and energy industries.
Sorry, my bad.
Affairs is the former people who I will talk about.
No, stop.
He was just talking to Zenas. He was talking about
Paul
affairs.
needs to drink his coffee.
He needs another sip and some.
Morning, gentlemen.
Sorry.
Are we on?
That's a really
Yes, we
poor choice of
are.
words there.
Okay, well, thank you all very much for this opportunity. Thanks for reaching out. I think it is an opportune moment. I know Steve has been trying to get me on for quite a while, but just been busy juggling a lot of things. So if I could jump straight into it, because I know we have limited time.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time.
The first thing I'd like to say, gentlemen and listeners, is very important that we understand that Trinidad and Tobago's economy or lifeline is based on energy, right? And is based on oil and gas. We talk about diversification, we make moves towards diversification. And whilst diversification may be an important trajectory for the future, we should not shy away from the fact that we're an oil and gas-based economy. And that is what has given us our ability as a country for the past many decades, since the late 60s, 70s. And, you know, people have been asking, well, how does this affect me? How does oil and gas affect me, the person on the street? Which is a great question. Immediately, it is what gives the government the majority of its revenues. 80% of our exports as a country are from oil and gas gas products, or ammonia or methanol or urea, or UAN or LNG, and oil-based products and these types of things. Over 38% of our GDP is based on oil and gas. But importantly, how does it affect the man on the street? Free health care is paid for from the revenue we earn from our oil and gas. Our schooling system, and we should never underestimate the fact that we actually have free education from kindergarten all the way up to tertiary education. Not many countries in the world have that type of ability. Our subsidized electricity. People often forget that electricity, fuel at the pump is still subsidized, but our electricity is heavily subsidized. We have one of the lowest electricity rates in the world. These things are paid for by oil and gas. Our public servants, our roads are maintained. Everything really comes from oil and gas. And whilst there is manufacturing going on and these types of things, which are great, and that is a building out of other parts of the economy, we shouldn't shy away. Oil and gas has been the staple of the revenue for Trinidad and Tobago, and that is what successive governments use to generate the revenue. The second point I'd like to segue straight into is to give us an understanding of where we are. We have seen oil and gas production declining from 2010. When you look at the statistics and you look at the figures, and I keep giving these over and over, we were at a maximum production in 2010, 2009, 2010 of gas. Let's start with gas, of what we call 4.3 billion cubic standard feet of gas a day. That is how much our plants in Trinidad are built to take, say 4.2, 4.3 BCF. By 2015, this had already declined to 3.8. That is a loss of what we call 500 million scuffs of gas, which is enough gas to power a whole LNG train and an ammonia plant. So we need to put that into context, because there's this politicking and a lot of dishonesty in the conversation as to where production was, who's responsible, etc. So production had declined by 500 million scuffs during that period, and it was on a downward decline. Add to that, because people still don't seem to understand this, not a single gas contract had been negotiated. You don't wait. I hear people putting forward an argument, well, you can't start negotiating a contract until it's expired. That is not true. Let me give you a good example. Atlantic LNG. It took us 5 years to restructure Atlantic LNG. It's never been done anywhere else in the world. We started at the first set of contracts expired this year in 2024, but we completed it last year after 5 years of negotiation. You start these conversations in energy way in advance of expiry, because you have to have a line of sight. It takes 2 to 5 years to bring on gas production. So you can't wait for it to expire. So when you look at what happened in the year 2016, you had a whole number of contracts that were supposed to have been negotiated. There was the biggest gas contract that Trinidad had, that the clause actually said start negotiations from January 1st, 2014. That was not done. So you lost in that period, which has brought us to where we are, we have lost another over 1 billion scuffs of gas a day in loss of contracts. But what we've been doing is negotiating. That's the first point. The second is we are what I call a mature province. And Trinidadians, and Tobagonians, you need to understand when you extract oil or gas out of the ground, it's not coming back in. That is it, it's gone. So when we have a natural decline of 20% a year on an existing field, an existing well, what that means, if you're producing 100 at the end of the year and you do nothing, by the end of the year, you're down to 80. So what you have to do is keep bringing on production to keep it stable at 100, hope for larger. But because we've been exploiting oil for over 100 years, and then gas we've been utilizing and exploiting for about 50 years, our natural fields, our natural resources have been depleted and are declining. So we're facing those two phenomena which have led. On the oil side, very briefly, Paul, I just want to put the oil figures out there. The oil in 2010 was over 100,000 barrels. By 2015, we had dropped to 78,000 barrels. So you had that drop off, and it has continued, unfortunately, to decline. Right now, we're about 50,000, 55,000 barrels a day. But you now also have asset integrity issues. So I was looking at this morning, before coming on, I was looking at some of our recent issues. And because the assets are aged, they're decades old, people have to take it offline for maintenance. That affects your production figures. But it's not a maintenance issue. We will never say that. That is part of it. But we are on a natural decline, and you have to push. So the future, we have negotiated. The future is looking well. I'll come to the cross-border gas, which is the Venezuelan gas, in a second, because up to last night, I heard a level of dishonesty from no less than the leader of the opposition trying to panic the country about Dragon. Give me 1 second, I'll come to that. But we've been meeting with Woodside and BP for deepwater gas. We've awarded deepwater blocks to BP and Shell as a consortium, which is good for Trinidad and Tobago because they are the major shareholders in LNG. We've had successful onshore, nearshore bid rounds. So we're doing what needs to be done. You're going to see a lot taking place in the industry. You've been hearing about it. You've been reading about it in international press. Paul, I just want to touch briefly on.
Well, let me ask a question.
Let me drink some coffee. Yes.
Let me ask a question first, no? You went off.
Please.
You went off at a speed there, boy. I count 8 straight minutes, boy. Wow, that's good.
Well, as Steve will tell you, this is my exercise time you cut it into, right?
Well,
this is exercise time on the treadmill.
Let me just lay some context, because you can't come for an interview with the Minister of Energy and not lay some context by doing some research. So I went to Enerdata and I went to a First Citizen Energy Analysis Quantitative Report 2023, which are 2 credible sources. Let me just lay some context, and you could say what you agree with and what you disagree with in terms of what the outlook is and where they have placed our energy sector.
Who's the first?
Enerdata.
Okay.
Right? And First Citizen, and they were basically in alignment. So competitive bid round for exploration and production held regularly both onshore and shallow water, deep water. BP is the largest natural gas producer. BP and Shell are main operators in LNG liquefaction. You said so. Gas production rebounded by 4% in 2022, with similar growth expected 23. So you could give us an overview of that. Electricity production increased by 6% in 22 after a decade of stability. Motor fuel prices 2 to 3 times lower than other Caribbean countries. Crude oil, in terms of oil, crude oil production remains roughly stable 2020 to 22. After a rapid decrease from a peak of 8.5 MT in 2006, over the first 3 quarters of 23, it declined by 6.5%. A rapid decrease is mainly explained by a faster than expected decline in production of the Angostura field and the rapid collapse of production at Trinidad. Energy, in terms of energy consumption, the country ranks 5th worldwide in terms of per capita primary energy consumption, which is something we need to discuss.
Because electricity
is
subsidized.
Exactly. They gave a great overview. And in terms of the issues related to, of course, we know that the energy sector, as you said, is the major contributor to our GDP, right? The export issues they cited basically focused on, as you said, declining opportunities for gas because of the mature fields and oil. So the question is, from all of that, what is the government's strategy, main strategy, in understanding where we are in terms of having mature fields and for both gas and oil? Because as you said, Anuati, so it is going to be our breadbasket for the foreseeable future, even while we diversify inside and outside the energy sector. What is the strategy, including touching on Dragon and other opportunities from the government?
Absolutely.
Understanding this situation we face.
Great question, Paul. That is a perfect platform to highlight, because it seems that some people either have not been following or don't want to appreciate what the government strategy is. You all would remember very early o'clock, we realized on both the oil with Petrotrin as a refinery, as well as the gas side, that Trinidad and Tobago was in a decline. We inherited basically a crisis. In the gas industry, we inherited $8 billion to $9 billion in claims against NGC for gas curtailment between 2010 to 2015. So that immediately brought you into focus. But what is going on here? And then also, in addition to that, what I just said, that a lack of negotiation of contracts, you started to see a rapid decrease of gas production that took us down from 4 to 3 BCF a day almost immediately in 2016. What the government immediately did is assess the situation. There was a report from Horton and Partners that we went to the population with by 2018. After we had dealt with the oil side with Petrotrin, we were focused on that up to that point. But on the gas side, you would have seen the Prime Minister immediately start to engage the heads of BP and Shell, who by then were the largest producers. Shell came in and they were at a very low level of production of gas because the contracts had expired. There were no new contracts. They acquired British Gas. By the Prime Minister immediately engaging with the top people in Shell, the top executives outside of Trinidad, we got them excited about Trinidad. We told them, look, Trinidad has your LNG platform in Atlantic LNG. Invest here, work with us. So we started looking at domestically, where are the fields that would come in? Deep water is the next horizon. What are the fields that we could work on with them, rework some of the production sharing contracts, the E&P licenses with BP, and get the local side stimulated and done. But you have to look outward, because as we recognize, domestically, it's limited, or acreage as we call it, the amount of land under the sea as well as on land that we have to produce is limited. Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world. They do not have a gas-based industry the way Trinidad does. Trinidad is very sophisticated. We produce LNG, ammonia, methanol. We are the second largest exporter of ammonia in the world. In 2022, we were the largest. We are in the top 3 of methanol in the world. LNG, we used to be the biggest plants with Train 1 and Train 4 when they were built. So we know we have the capacity, we have the plant. So we looked next door. We negotiated with Dragon. By 2018, we had a commercial term sheet. That gas was going to come to market by 2020. It was going to fill these drops in production. Of course, the US sanctions came in heavily in 2019, but we didn't stop. We continued. When people thought it could never happen, we quietly and competently, the Prime Minister and myself, went to Washington, D.C., spoke to all of the leaders in both houses, on the Republican side, on the Democratic side, in the Senate, in the House, the House of Representatives. We met with the highest levels in government, the Department of State, Department of Agriculture, Department of Energy, told them about the potential Trinidad has, because by then the Russia-Ukraine war had started. The world was coming off of Russian gas, and they were looking, where could we get friendly gas from allies that are democratically stable? And we convinced them we have the capacity in Trinidad, in all of these plants that I've just listed, to produce LNG and the fertilizer. We need 17 kilometers of pipeline to drag on. Nobody thought it would be done. No fanfare. I remember on days, the Prime Minister and myself going to 5 to 7 meetings, one after the other, in Washington, D.C., speaking to these people, educating them on the potential Trinidad has. We got a license from OFAC, and this is a good opportunity to once again say The only other people that have a specific license from OFAC for Venezuela is Chevron. Many people have applied, many people have asked. Trinidad and Tobago got one in January 2023. By October 2023, of course, when we got that, all the naysayers said, Maduro, we're not going to negotiate with you all because you can't pay them in cash. We continued several trips to Venezuela, continued in the commercial discussions, and of course, we were working with the United States government as well. So by October of last year, we had an amended OFAC license that expires in October 31st, 2025, and we could pay in cash. By the 21st of December of last year, we achieved in Venezuela what no one else has achieved. We now have a 30-year exploration and production license from the government of Venezuela that has gone through all of the legal necessities to be granted to Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago has a 30-year license to explore and produce and export, which hasn't happened before, the gas from Dragon to Trinidad.
How do you respond? And this is an opportunity for you to put it on the record again, because I'm sure you have before. There have been concerns articulated, given what you've said about the potential of Dragon and its supply of gas for Trinidad and Tobago to fill our needs, because there's several factors involved there. One, the impending U.S. election. Two, the situation in Venezuela and what some consider a potential instability where Maduro is concerned. And our situation, the OFAC license going till 2025, right, and our potential to monetize and sustain that dependent on what can be considered two significantly tenuous situations.
Absolutely.
If the U.S. election goes a particular way, you may have to go and renegotiate.
But those are risks that I suppose the government has to factor in their strategy.
Listen, there are risks in everything. There are risks in when you go to drill a well, you may not hit or you may hit. So there are risks in everything. But let me explain it. Why I said we are the only ones apart from Chevron to get a specific license. Chevron's license rotates from 3 months to 6 months. We have a 2-year that expires at the end of October 2025. US governors had very positive conversations with us about the renewal and the extension of that license. That's the first point. The second point, because this is what Mrs. Kamala Prasad-Bissessar spoke about, and again, dishonestly told the population last night, there's a general license 44 that is coming up for expiry or renewal on the 18th of April this year. Dragon is in no way associated with that. So this conversation and narrative by the UNC, no less than the leader of the opposition and others, that, it's going to collapse, because if the general license 44 isn't renewed at the end of this week by the United States, we can't go ahead. That is not true. We have a specific license that carries us through. The US Gov have told us about the extension, the rollover, the continuation of our specific license. That's one. Two, we have to deal with whoever is in Miraflores. Remember that time there were people saying there was a President Guaido? We stuck to principle. We continue negotiating with the government in place in Miraflores. We have to deal with whoever is the government in place in Washington, D.C., in the White House. As I said, when we went up to the United States, to D.C., the Prime Minister and myself did not only meet with Democrats. We stay engaged with Republicans. You would have seen that, fortunately for Trinidad and Tobago, this has not erupted into a political football in Washington, D.C., because we've had this license for a while. I can't predict the future. I can't predict what will happen 2 hours from now or 3 hours from now when Paul is in the Senate. All we can do is competently put things in place, continue having negotiations and discussions with people. At the end of January of this year, I can tell you all that I went up ahead of the Prime Minister to Washington, D.C. I had meetings at the White House with those who advise the decision makers at the highest level in the White House. Within a few days, the Prime Minister joined me, and he then joined those conversations and discussions, including with Vice President Kamala Harris. And that leads me to another point I'd like to mark. I saw today in the Express newspaper another level of dishonesty by no less than Rudal Munilal, where he is saying things about the Prime Minister's travel. These are the successes and the returns from these travel. And so he also said in there, and then the so-called Minister of Energy, my travel costs weren't included in there. They are included in their Trinidad and Tobago. So be careful when people are putting forward information and their spins, and unfortunately their dishonesty. So Paul, that is the answer. There is risk. We have done everything we can to mitigate the risk by remaining engaged with all of the decision makers on both sides. I think just let me just finish this one, Richard. Regardless of what happens with the US elections in November, I feel a sense of security because we've engaged with the public servant level below, the politicians as well, who are the ones that advise on strategy and how to move things around. Trinidad and Tobago is an ally of the United States, and they have recognized our importance not only globally in providing LNG, ammonia, and fertilizer, but also the role we play in CARICOM. That if there's instability financially for Trinidad and Tobago, that can have a knock-on effect for CARICOM. You would have seen the strengthening of the relationship between CARICOM and the United States. So all of these things are at play. We are managing many, many moving pieces in the geopolitics, and we remain engaged. I can't give any guarantees, but I can tell you we've reached much further along than anybody ever thought we would, and especially in a short period of time.
Well, the best mitigation to risk, Minister, would be the diversification of your portfolio in terms of where you're getting gas and oil from.
Absolutely.
And of course, Venezuela will have its own inherent risks, geopolitical and otherwise. But you also have the issue of shallow and deep water fields and acreages that are being explored.
Correct.
How optimistic or confident are you about the approach taking place in that part of it?
Thanks, Richard. Excellent question. I am very, very optimistic about what is going on, especially in the existing acreage. What you have now is some of the smaller players like EOG and Perenco looking at bigger fields that existed, and they are very nimble and their costs are lower. So whilst a huge multinational like BP and Shell's cost may say $100 to produce something, they're able to produce it at much lower levels, and therefore there's a margin for the pricing of gas, and that is what is going on right now. So you're seeing them aggressively going after smaller pockets of gas that a BP and a Shell may not have gone after. But BP and Shell are also doing the same with infill drilling, and they're having a lot of success. So when I look at the production outlook, domestically in Trinidad and Tobago, it is going to be stable and start going upwards because there are a lot of projects that are coming on. Onshore as well, you have Touchstone, who for the first time in decades are producing commercial gas onshore, which of course has a lower production cost. They're drilling more wells, they're bringing more on. You have the same aggressiveness beginning to take place on the oil side with smaller producers. So that is looking well. The deep water, we're pursuing the deep water. BP and Shell will start the seismic in the deep water soon. We continue our negotiations with Woodside to bring to commerciality the deep water, the Calypso project. So these are the things going on domestically. Another mitigation and diversification of the risk, Richard, Paul, and Steve, is that we are also having very technical discussions, for example, with Suriname. Suriname may have found large pockets of gas. Trinidad and Tobago has the ability to monetize gas immediately. You don't have to wait to build onshore pipelines and then onshore plants and give incentives and moratoriums, etc. You could earn revenue if that gas were to come to Trinidad. We have already signed agreements with Grenada, with Barbados. So we've looked all around, and what we have is the infrastructure to immediately, on an international basis, monetize gas, and we have leveraged that. So we are looking in all areas to diversify. We have had very, very productive conversations with the EU, the European Union Commission. I was in Brussels a few weeks ago, and they are bought in with a project with us and some European companies, oil and gas companies, to reduce what we call methane, which is really natural gas flaring in the air, and bring that to market, because they too are looking at how do they diversify their gas portfolio. Having come off Russian gas, they don't want to become totally dependent on another source of gas, and they've asked Trinidad and Tobago, we're going to work with them for us to be able to do that. So they too are now having conversations with the United States.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned that, because production levels and output is one part of the equation. Pricing, which we are price takers, we are small market prices, are another factor in the equation. And I'm just looking at the trend in oil prices, and I'll go to gas after. January 22 crude oil prices to the USD 83.10 per barrel. It peaked in June 22, 114, and declined over the last day, 23.70. This morning I looked at Brent crude. It stands about $89, $90 per barrel. Or gas now, Henry Hub increased within the first 8 months of 22, $4.30 per MMBTU, plunged through February and stabilized in June at 240, and it closed at 222 in June of 2023.
And where is it today, Paul? Tell them where it is today. 170 how much, or 180 how much?
Yeah, so it's rebounded again, but these fluctuations.
No, it's gone down.
It's gone down again, right?
Henry Hub is $1.69 today.
That's not the price that we get when we negotiate higher prices.
Thank you, Richard. At least I know one person is listening here. So what we did, another thing we did, Paul, is we recognized, because our price of gas was pegged. Let me start with the gas, because first thing to understand is we have no control over these international markers that you've just referred to. Trinidad and Tobago has no role whatsoever in setting oil and gas prices internationally, ammonia, methanol prices, right? So we realized, well, hold on, we are pegged to Henry Hub. So look at what Paul has said. Henry Hub hovered at $2, went up to $3 during the Russia-Ukraine war, but now today is $1.70, $1.65. We didn't sit there and say, well, boy, we will continue accepting that. The contracts hadn't expired. We went through the energy spotlight, no less than the Prime Minister made a declaration. We want a better return for the resources of Trinidad and Tobago. At the time, everybody screamed and shouted, oh, you're going to run the investment from Trinidad, which we know now did not happen. In fact, we got increased investment. We sat and we negotiated new prices. So today, we aren't pegged totally to that Henry Hub price. We negotiated a basket. We sat and we looked at it. And I thought about it. I said, well, hold on. Some of our gas goes to Asia. Some of our gas goes to Europe. When Henry Hub was agreed, that's because the majority of gas went to the eastern seaboard of the United States. Why don't we get some Asian pricing and some European pricing, diversifying and spreading our risk there? But also, why don't we work in part oil price as well? So regardless of what happens with gas price, we've pegged some to the price of oil. Let me show you how that works for us today. So we have a third based on a discount of Brent. We have a third based on an Asian market called JKM. And we have a third on European markers, either TTF or NVP. So that basket immediately gives us, and we've seen it now historically since we implemented it in 2018 come forward, between 20 to 50% higher gas rate than you get with Henry Hub. So today, we are getting higher rates of return than a Henry Hub pricing for gas. And again, that is something we did. And we did that before contracts expired. We also went to the production sharing contracts, the new ones, and said, going forward, this is how we want to price the gas. And it has been accepted. Unfortunately, that is how Trinidad and Tobago managed to maintain a revenue stream. Whilst production has gone down, we're getting a higher value for the gas because we didn't sit quietly and just accept. So today, when Henry Hub is $1.70, we would be getting, because of the basket, on average, about $3. So when you work it out, it's about 40 to 50% at times over what we would have been getting before. And that is significant.
Can you give us a status update on the Atlantic trains?
The Atlantic, as you know, we negotiated and restructured Atlantic LNG. That kicks in the first side from October of this year when 2 and 3 expire their liquefaction licenses and they go forward. With respect to the trains, you have 2, 3, and 4 working. Train 1 is not, there's no gas for train 1. So train 1 has been dormant. Train 1 has been in a sort of preservation mothball role. And I suspect train 1 eventually will start to be decommissioned because we also have to remember the shelf life of it was 20 years. We're trying to extend it for 25 years. It is now old technology, but there simply wasn't gas. But what we did is we utilized train 1 at the time to leverage in the negotiations with the other shareholders. And that is why we did what we did with Train 1, knowing that unfortunately there wasn't any gas. And what we got for Trinidad and Tobago was a restructured Atlantic where we now have a 10% shareholding in 2, 3, and 4 and Train 1, because everything is built onto Train 1. Train 2, 3, so there's still parts that need to work from an engineering point of view. We also got better revenue for the gas, and we've significantly gotten access for third-party gas. So people who are not shareholders could bring their gas now to Atlantic and negotiate in what we call a tolling arrangement.
What would have been the main contributors to the disruptions in those Atlantic trains? Because they've seemed to have quite a tumultuous run in the last couple of years.
I don't think they've had a tumultuous run, Paul. I mean, what you had is you had Train 1 coming out of the equation, but because of the drop in production of gas, we have insisted as a government. Another thing we discuss as well is allocation of gas. So whereas shareholders may want to put all of the gas they produce into LNG, we say no, first you have to put into electricity production, then we have to send some to the methanol, the ammonia, the urea, the UAN production, then to LNG. So with a natural decline and the decline I've spoken about in gas production, that has affected the amount of gas that can go into Atlantic. I'd like to say this, people. When I look at the gas production and the work we've done, when I look at what will happen with Venezuela, regardless of what they say, we've also negotiated to be able to start Manatee, which is significant. That's about 3 TCF of gas. We're currently discussing and negotiating Coquina Manakin with BP. Let's wait and see what happens. But when you look at Dragon, which will happen, you look at Manatee, you look at the deep water potential, but also, as Richard pointed out, all that is happening, the gas production is going to rise significantly at the end of 2026, 2027, 28, 29 is going to start going very, very rapidly upwards once again, conservatively. If other things start coming in that we've been working on and negotiating, we will have potentially during that period more gas than we had in the 8 and 9 period. So it leads us to this point. We have to think very carefully who is going to manage that period, and that is what is to come. I saw a newspaper headline the other day how I said that the current energy industry is in a great shape. I never said that. What I said is from 27, 28, 29, you see the gas production rapidly rising as a result of all that we've been negotiating and putting in place. And the endorsement of that is what you saw with the IMF Article 4 consultation recently, where they said the outlook, the medium-term outlook for Trinidad and Tobago is one of growth and an increase in production. That is what they're seeing because we've shared those with them. They do their own independent analysis.
Now, energy is not only oil and gas, and
Correct.
there is a lot of discussion about the huge solar farm that's supposed to come in stream. What is going to be the impact of that? Because that is a form of diversification of our energy portfolio also.
Correct.
What is the timeline on that? And particularly in terms of our being able to get that on stream, go more to a green, sustainable form of energy while having more options with the oil and gas that we may be able to. What is the strategic plan for that and the timeline for that? Because that to me is one of the more exciting projects I've seen coming about in Trinidad and Tobago.
It's the largest solar project in the whole CARICOM. Let's start with that, right? What we're utilizing that, if we could bring more renewables onto our electricity grid, it frees up more molecules of gas that we can monetize in LNG, ammonia, methanol, etc. So that is what the government is striving to do. Last week, I went to Cabinet for wind. Cabinet approved and confirmed I could proceed with wind. We're also looking now at the second round of wind studies to build wind turbines, both onshore and offshore, because we see that as the future. We don't have enough land space for solar to make significant inroads with solar that can power an industry. So when you look at the future of where energy can go, green hydrogen is one of the conversations of the future. To produce green hydrogen, we have all of the infrastructure in Trinidad already, right? So what we need to do is produce an electrolyzer that basically takes water, H2O, strips out the oxygen, the O, and leaves the hydrogen that then goes into ammonia production, because that is what is utilized in the ammonia production. So if we can get clean green hydrogen by an electrolyzer being powered totally by renewables, which will be wind and solar, into that electrolyzer, you produce green hydrogen into the ammonia, and that continues our future in the energy industry. So that is what I intend to discuss with Cabinet, the use of solar, that solar we're building there, but also we're about to go out with more RFPs for more solar, because I think the more solar we could bring onto our electricity grid, the better, but we're also looking at wind, because to produce green hydrogen in the future is not going to come from solar. We don't have the land space. Let's build the wind turbines and build that in, but it also contributes and fulfills our obligations towards the global climate change pollution.
Timelines
I'm glad you brought that up, Minister, because I was, and that you're contextualizing the sustainable energy in terms of wind and solar, because I know the United Nations Environment Program estimates that governments will be producing 75% less gas and oil from its current levels, 75% less by 2050, which is 26 years away, which is not that far.
It's not that far, but
so I was wondering how much of a plan and how far forward thinking is the government in terms of that strategy, which you're touching on there.
Good point. And Paul, just to answer the last part of your question, I heard you kind of repeated their timelines. The solar will be in place and on the grid by next year. 2025 is the date of completion for that. Richard, that project alone is 10% of our electricity production. All right. So you see us moving towards our obligation. We want to bring our use of renewables 30% onto the electricity grid. So that is why we're looking at these things. As I said, Cabinet has said, go ahead with the wind, and let's see how we could pursue the wind. Cabinet had given the approval already for us to build a pilot green hydrogen project, which I'm going to go back to Cabinet on either this week or next week for some tweaks on as we've gone along with it and studied it more. When we look at the wind, we're looking at getting that into our grid by 2030 with the 2050 timeline in sight. Now, what I can tell you all are, those projections about the reduction of oil and gas by 2050 are being refined as we speak, because countries are beginning to realize it's not that easy to just turn off the oil and gas. What they're focusing on now, fortunately, is coal. Coal is the worst emitter of greenhouse gases, and you still have increased production and utilization of coal by the wealthy countries of the world and by the very developed countries of the world. They need to come off of the coal first. Trinidad and Tobago started that conversation globally in 2022. It has finally picked up, and when I was in CERAWeek a few weeks ago, I was pleased to hear people now having the fortitude and the confidence to come forward and say, hey, we need to stop with the coal, because coal is really what is doing the damage. You can utilize gas. Gas will be utilized well beyond 2050 because the technology is also improving to clean up and reduce any emissions from the utilization of gas. Gas, they say now, is a transition fuel, but we will never be 100% reliable on renewables alone.
Given the government's clear focus on, let's deal with solar, with the farm coming on.
Project Lara, yep.
Why hasn't there commensurately been a move by the government to streamline residential and commercial properties, having an easier transition to including solar panels in their own grids, reducing the drain on the national electricity grid?
Excellent
to me, it doesn't seem like there's been a real thrust for government to make that process less cumbersome and legislatively easier.
A few things. First, realistically, because there are all the incentives, all of the reductions of import, customs duty, VAT, etc. on the solar panels, right? And doing it for your household, but you haven't seen the cost. When you do the capital cost versus the current cost of your electricity bill, it's not there from a financial point of view. It is still a lot, our cost of electricity, switching on all our lights, is still a lot cheaper than going and putting your own solar panels. That's one. Two, the legislation does need to be amended, but that's the simple part, and that's to allow feed-in tariffs. What people don't talk about, and this is the real key, is the grids, the national grid cannot easily take in solar from everybody's household because they come in at fluctuating rates. So Paul's house, Richard's house, Steve's house, my house would all be sending the excess solar electricity that we may generate, for example, when we're not home during the day, into the grid. It needs to go into substations. All need to feed into a substation first that need to be strategically placed all over the country that will then regulate it to one level to then send it back out onto the national grid. So it is not as simple as, well, let's all put solar on our house and just hook it up to the electricity pole outside. So it is a huge capital intensive cost that needs to and is being looked at for the costing of how does this get done. But you're going to have to build these substations strategically all over to take in. And you can imagine that all these households sending at fluctuating different rates, different levels, of electricity in. And
so it's not as simple as just legislation and jump on.
It's not. No, it is not.
Let me just change gears a bit. Recently, around March 15th, there was a statement from former Republican candidate Ronald Harford, former chairman, where he spoke about, and I'm quoting from the Express here, as at March 15th, quote, "We belong to this damn country and the politicians here are here to save us. When we see things going wrong, it is your money that's going wrong. That's your tax money that's being wasted. We must no longer be spectators. We must be citizens and assume the rightful position and responsibilities to guide this country." Harford is quoted as saying. You responded quite strongly.
Vociferously.
And said to what some consider an elder statement, when someone becomes a former, their mouth gets big, and you went in on Mr. Harford. Do you think the response was commensurate to this statement?
First of all, what that report left out is the other parts of what I said. First, all that you've quoted there by Mr. Harford, he's entitled to say. Right? Politicians, elected politicians, are elected by the population to serve. There can be no argument with that whatsoever. What I took a bit of umbrage to is him saying that we have no oil and gas policy. Where is the oil and gas policy? I have just spent, and if you give me 3 more hours, I could continue discussing all that we've been seeing in the public, because at every stage that this government has done anything in energy, the Prime Minister or the Minister of Energy, whoever he or she is, always comes forward and tells the country this is what is going on. So the oil and gas policy you're seeing unfold in front of you, you're seeing the results of it. That is what I took offense to. So don't go and say there's no oil and gas policy. Where is the oil and gas policy? Because what you're doing there is you're trying to change the narrative and you're trying to rewrite facts. To say bloody politicians work for people, true. I can't take any offense to that whatsoever. Re-elected. To say that you're not going to participate in the process, I find a little confusing, because I assume your participation in the process is either that you get yourself involved in the process and come forward to serve there, or that you go to the voting booth and you vote. So is
that fair though? So participation can only be electoral?
No. I didn't just say that, Paul. I didn't say that at all. By participation in the process, I said come forward and serve. It doesn't mean come forward necessarily and serve as an elected member of parliament. Come forward. You could serve on a state board. We have approached literally scores, dozens, hundreds of people saying, can you go and serve on a state board? Can you bring this expertise, this experience that you've had in private sector now and help in the public sector? People run away from that and they use the excuse of the integrity legislation. You have to fill out integrity forms, don't you, Paul? I have to fill it out. Right? Every single year, as difficult as it is to find the time, etc., to do it, that can't be an excuse for not serving your country. That you don't want to fill out a form, you don't want to put forward what your assets and your liabilities are, in my humble opinion. So there are hundreds of ways to serve, but come forward and serve. It's very easy to sit on an armchair, to sit wherever you are, and to criticize and say this needs to be.
But that's the right of a citizen to make a comment about the country's.
But I said that. I just said that, Paul. I accepted straight away that it is his right and every citizen's right to criticize, to comment, etc. What I took umbrage for, and I'll repeat it, is that saying that the government has no oil and gas policy, because it's absolutely not true. I've spent the last 45 minutes outlining only a little bit of what it is. And if we just use December 2023 as the greatest litmus test, there were 2 things achieved by this government in December 2023 that have not been achieved anywhere else in the world. One, the restructuring of Atlantic LNG It has never happened anywhere else in the world. And two, what we did in achieving that 30-year exploration, production, and export license of dragon gas to Trinidad and Tobago, in addition to an OFAC license for 2 years, which is the longest OFAC license granted for Venezuela to be able to do that project. Just those
Mr.
two
Young,
things,
thank
those
you for
didn't
being-
come across like that.
Appreciate you being with us this morning. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, gentlemen. I appreciate it. Take
Thanks
care.
so much,
Steve,
Minister.
you were quiet.
Have a good day, Minister. All right.
Take care.
Of course. Yeah, all the best.
All right, you all have a great day. Be safe.
Yeah, and just reminding you, of course, that theater is on this weekend. Our Love is a Walk is on a roll, and we're heading to Cipriani College this weekend, Saturday at 8:30, Sunday at 6:30. Tickets will be available at the Cipriani College box office from tomorrow, 12 noon to 6 p.m. daily. And of course, tickets are available at outlets across the country since yesterday from Electronics in Arimas, K-Squared Fashions in West Mall and Eastgate, Creme Fresh in Brentwood Mall in Chagonas, and Tony's Florals in Valpark Shopping Plaza, Jubilee Railway in Tunapuna, Sharfley Auto Services. All of these places have tickets already, so you can get your tickets early. We expect to have 2 fantastic shows this weekend, judging from the hundreds of people that came out to Queen's Hall on Saturday and Sunday. I mean, we had fantastic houses, and the word of mouth is tremendous. We just have all sorts of positive reviews pouring into our social media platforms. You should not miss it. Trust me, it's the best 2 hours you will spend in 2024. It will be the greatest stress reliever you have in 2024. Have a fantastic day, whatever you do on this Tuesday morning, and we'll speak to you bright and early tomorrow morning.